Donna Davis. I am here with the one and only Richard Cole, the founder of Cole's Wild Bird Products, and he is here to answer all of your birding questions. So we want you to be sure to make this interactive and ask your questions. It's great to have you here.
It's so good to be here again.
I know. It's been a while, so we've got a big show today. Tell us about a few of the things you're going to talk about today.
We're going to talk about what's going on right now. February is a very special month for birds, and we're going to talk about that and some things you could do to participate in learning about birds. The great backyard bird count's coming up. And we're going to talk about winter feeding.
Yeah.
Maybe some extra things you could do for taking care of the birds during the wintertime.
That's right. I think everybody who is a fan of the Cole's Facebook page and loves to feed birds, just loves all the advice about what you can do for them in the winter. It seems like it's a tough time to survive. We do want to remind you to ask your questions, and the computer that's sitting over here, you'll see me looking at every once in a while. That's how I can see your questions. So first of all, let's talk about, this is a big day.
This is Groundhog Day.
That's right.
And we're going to have more winter.
Yeah, 6 more weeks of winter. So I think the birds were watching the news this morning when they saw, oh my gosh, it's going to be cold. In parts of the country, it is so very cold, and winter storm, and man, the birds are really going to need it.
Yes, and this is February, so it's a bad time for birds, really, because this is hard for them. It's one of the times I call just when they need it the most. February, March, maybe very early April. Things look nice as you get into March and April, but it's still very little food out there for them.
And that's why this is National Bird Feeding Month, right? Because this is a really tough time for them. And
the food's getting low, and we want to take care of them. So we want them around in the springtime.
Yeah, and so, there's a long history to the National Bird Feeding Month of February, but we do want to invite all of you to, ask your questions about feeding birds in February and that sort of thing as well.
Yes.
And, of course, let's talk about Valentine's Day.
You mentioned Valentine's Day just a few minutes ago off camera. I'm like, uh-oh. I forgot all about it. It's here, isn't it?
Yes, this is the time that you got to get your sweetheart something.
Yes, I'll be in big trouble if I don't do that.
Absolutely.
And you could be in big trouble, too, if you don't get some. Bird feeders make a really great gift.
Yeah,
and,
if you want to, what a pretty package you could put together, something like that with a bow. I know, it looks really, really nice. So to be able to give the seed and a feeder and maybe get someone started in such a great thing like feeding the birds, or else, if you love someone who loves to feed the birds, these make a great gift, and the birds will appreciate it.
And it's right when the birds need it the most, too. So.
Right.
A great Valentine's gift from Cole's Wild Bird Seed and a new feeder, or maybe 2 new feeders. Can't have enough feeders.
Absolutely. So tell us about another event that's coming up in February.
We've got the 25th annual GBBC, Great Backyard Bird Count. This is a sort of a joint venture between Cornell and the National Audubon Society, and it invites everybody to participate in going in their own backyard or wherever they'd like to and counting birds on a scheduled basis, so much 1 hour a day or something like that, that all the details are available at Great Backyard Bird Count. And you can look it up for that, and also birdcount.org.
Right.
And it's very easy, and it's not for scientists and things, it's for everybody, but there's so many people that participate. And that's what's so good, because we get this information from all over the country.
Yeah.
And it comes and people work with this information to start to see patterns over the years that this thing's been going on. Is it better this year or worse this year? You're seeing more blue jays or less of this. And so it's important that you participate, and it makes a big difference. And you send in your data from your backyard, and it adds up.
Yeah,
very important.
That really is
it's a lot of fun, and you can see what you've done from one year to the other. That's important too.
Yeah.
It's easy to do. You can look up the information and do it, and get your family to participate.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
What a great lesson for kids too.
Oh, absolutely.
To learn a little bit more about nature and how they can get involved in it. So tell me about some of your suggestions about feeding the birds now during the winter.
We get a lot of questions about feeding. Well, it's wintertime. What do I feed the birds? Well, what have you been feeding them? They're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So a good quality bird food. I mean, you shouldn't have to change that. It's going to be good all year long. Mm-hmm. But I always like to add something extra for wintertime when the weather's more harsh. They could use more fats, which is high energy. And so I like to add in things like suet, the suet-based products. You know, the suet cakes are very popular. Make sure there's plenty of those on hand, especially the ones that'll hold up in the wintertime, and especially the Coles, and they're all great.
Any of these you would suggest over another one, or are they all just great for the wintertime?
They're all great. And I tell you, I like to mix and match them. I like to run one and run another, run two at a time. It's always good to have two suet feeders. And I'll show you a different type of suet feeder in a little bit you can make at home also. Okay. And you can put one cake in one, cut up another, and stick it in this thing I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
And also the Coles Hot Meats suet is extra good because you can hang it out there anywhere you want, and the squirrels are not going to eat it up.
Right.
Because they do tend to hog it. So if you have the problem, you get the Coles Hot Meat suet, and that'll take care of that problem. And the birds love it. I run that all year long, and my birds absolutely love that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and the squirrels leave it alone.
Yeah, I know. So, I use the hot meat blends on my porch because I used to always, on the feeder that's close to our deck, and the squirrels could get up there and lean all the way out and just raid the feeder.
Yeah.
So
not with the hot meats.
They'll
leave it alone.
They just leave it alone.
Yeah. And we also, with these Coles suet keepers, I'll show some of this while we're talking about it.
Absolutely.
This is a good product.
Yeah, hold it up a little bit. Or we
there
can
we
see
go.
it on camera. There you
go.
There it is. So
And
the suet kibble.
And we're going to open this up in just a minute and show you something. But it's high energy because it's got a lot of fat in there, and it's got two flavors. And the birds love this stuff, and it's small enough for them to grab it and go. And another thing.
That reminds me of the restaurant. Grab and go.
Grab and go is right here.
Yeah.
Favorite snack. Dried mealworms.
Yeah.
They don't wiggle. They're not alive, but they have all the nutrients of a regular worm, and the birds love these. They'll get used to eating them, and they come and get these all the time.
What a great thing for bluebirds. And these two mixed together are great for bluebirds, too.
Yes. Bluebirds don't particularly eat seed. They'll eat sunflower meats out of the coals, but they're not big seed eaters because their bills aren't designed for that.
Right.
But they love insects. They love berries and things. This is a great food. I'm going to show it. Here is the Bountiful Bowl.
Yeah.
One of the Coles feeders. I love this thing. And I'm going to show you what some of this will do. And I'll take the lid off so we can look at it well.
Yeah, here we go. Here's our bird's eye view.
And this is, like I said, I like to mix and match it sometimes. You can put a lot of things in here. Actually, those actually smell very good.
I bet you've tasted them.
I'm going to resist the temptation to snack on a few of them.
Good.
But they have this aroma of toasted nuts.
Do they?
Yes, it's very pleasant.
Yeah.
And here we go with all the good stuff, the suet kibbles.
Yep. It looks a little like Captain Crunch's Crunch Berries.
It does, and I guarantee the birds are going to like something like this.
That's what they see it like, the Captain Crunch's Crunch Berries.
And I generally put them one side to the other. Or you can mix them up. The birds will do a good job of mixing them anyhow. You can also add some peanuts to this. And if you have Nutberry Suet Blend, one of our great blends that has some other fruit pieces and all in it, that can go in here. Sometimes we'll cut up grapes and throw in here, fresh grapes.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll have plenty of these little snack things. And then this thing is ready to go.
Look at that.
And this is one of the things you can feed out in the wintertime. There's another way to feed these types of products.
Well, I love the
Coles.
feeder, too. You can really see.
This is one of my favorites. This is, other than my tube feeder for seeds and a platform for the squirrels.
Do you want to have it right here, or do you want to move it?
Yeah.
Okay. We can, okay.
And then here's another type of feeder. It's the Mighty Mesh. And it's wire. It's solid. This thing is really solid.
Yep.
It's very solid. And it also is very easy to clean.
So easy. That is the best part. I love that.
And you just add stuff in here. These are great things to put in here, along with peanuts and things. And all the birds will come here and hang all over this, especially the nuthatches and things like that, and pick out. They'll pick on the peanuts, and they'll pick out the little things and go.
Do you want to put any food in it? just for our demo
No,
purposes?
we'll wait.
No? Okay, okay.
But that's just a great feeder and a great thing to put all
Yeah.
this good seed in.
Yeah.
And I will show. Here we go. Since we talked about it, suet cakes.
Yep, the hot meat suet cake. That's
One of my
perfect.
favorites.
Yeah.
And I'll put this out there in my suet feeders, something like this, a
Yeah.
traditional style suet feeder.
Yeah.
And but there's another way I like to do it. Here is just a piece of wood. It looks like a fence pole,
Where'd you get it?
and I just made it.
You did?
Yeah, and
Aw,
just simply took
nice.
a drill and drill
Yeah.
with a wood bit and drill some holes in it part of the way. And I drilled some little holes and stuck some pegs in there.
Yeah.
Not
Oh, so
necessary.
they can stand
The bigger birds can do this. The small birds have no trouble because this is rough.
because they just hold it.
And if you look, there's some little saw cuts right here.
Yeah.
This little ones, give them place for their claws to hang.
Uh-huh.
But the perches are good for some of the bigger birds, like the bluebirds who can't hang on the side as well. Now, I'll take one of these cakes,
Yeah.
I'll just lay it down, and I'll just cube it.
Yeah.
Hit it 3 or 4 times with a knife and stick the squares right in these holes. Makes it
Now,
very easy.
because that's the hot meats, do you have to
Mm-hmm.
be really careful not to touch your face and all that after you handle it because it's got that habanero to the pepper?
You probably should, yeah.
Yeah.
You probably should. You will only touch your face or eyes one time after handling this. That you'll wash your hands really good. You may want to wear gloves when you handle this
Yeah.
and put it in there, especially when you're mashing it with your thumb and all.
Yes.
But just wash them really good with soap and water after you're through. Just be careful not to touch your face. It's hot enough to burn your eyes
Yeah.
and make you tear up. So, but just a good way to use suet.
Yeah.
All the flavors, just cut it up in little squares. I throw mine in a little plastic container with a lid on it, and I'll go out there and poke them into the holes and hang another suet block out. So they have plenty of suet. Very important food in the wintertime.
And what type of birds would you expect to attract with that hot
Everything.
meats?
The nuthatches, the woodpeckers, bluebirds, and the warblers that stay in the U.S. during the wintertime. There's a lot of birds. Basically, if they get to it, the blue jays will come over there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some birds that don't eat this.
Yeah.
It's only restricted by who can get on here. With the perches, you can get like mockingbirds and all come over to this. So very good, and especially when you're talking about the feeder like this
Yeah.
with the suet type products in there. Everybody will get in it.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And if you're having a problem with squirrels getting in a feeder like this,
Yeah.
you could also use cold seed sauce, flaming squirrel
Oh,
seed sauce,
yeah.
and coat this before you put it out here if you're having problems with squirrels. And the birds won't care. They'll love it with a hot sauce on there. But the squirrels will leave it alone. Then
Yeah.
the birds can get this all to themselves.
Yeah.
So
That is such a beautiful feeder. I think anybody would love to have, a feeder like that
Sure.
for Valentine's.
yeah. And if you want to make your Valentine one like this, don't tell them you just got a
Yeah.
piece of wood and drill some holes in it. Tell them it's fancy.
No, I think that's even more special because a handmade
It
gift
is.
is better than
It is
anything.
indeed. Yeah.
So a lot of great ideas about what to feed the birds during the winter, and you always want to make sure that you've got something out, right? That's the most important thing. Be consistent. Keep that food out, right?
That's probably one of the more important things. People say you only feed in the fall. I was reading an article actually today. They were talking about fall bird feeding. It's like, oh, it's starting to get cool. It's into summer. Let's feed the birds in the fall, and then they forget about it. It's just the
Yeah.
fall. I don't know. The birds don't need a lot of food in the fall time because there's a lot of natural food available. And you'll see a lot of times in many areas that the feeding at your feeders will drop off dramatically in fall
Yes.
because they don't need that food. There's so much natural stuff available. So I just say just keep your feeders with some food in them all the time. Don't think about what season you're feeding. Be very consistent. If you want to go out there at noontime every day and fill up your feeder, that's fine. If you don't want to fill it up all the way, if you don't want to waste that much bird seed or use that much bird seed or buy that much bird seed, fill it halfway. But as long as the birds know that there's food in that location reliably,
Yeah.
they'll show up about that time.
Yeah.
They will not waste energy coming to an empty feeder. They
Yeah.
will soon just go somewhere else because
Yeah.
they can't afford. They're so efficient that way with their energy. And, well, if your restaurant's closed every time you went by, you'd probably quit going there too.
I've noticed that we can, there are certain feeders that they just like.
Mm-hmm.
I can put the same food in like several of my tube feeders that I have, and then have that in another couple of feeders in my yard, and they won't touch the other feeders, but they'll keep coming back even when there's no food in that one.
They get very used to
They do.
where they find the food.
They do.
They want that, and that may encourage you to try some food in other feeders or other feeders in different locations. Have a few feeders, move some around. You may find a spot that's better or a spot that's easier for you to see the birds when they're on it. And but keep your main feeders there and consistently filled up.
Yeah. And since we have time, we do want to encourage you to ask your questions while we're live with the resident expert in birds. But we also want to remind people, I guess, keep some hummingbird food out, right? You say the hummingbirds may still come around.
We start talking about this every fall when people start to, the hummingbirds are moving out of the U.S. and moving down to Central America, but not all of them. Some of them come into the southeast and up the east coast and across the south of the U.S. and stay the winter. And this is not unusual. And we see western species moving into the eastern United States to spend the winter. Rufous hummingbirds and black chins especially are found here, not in great abundance, but they're here. So we encourage everybody to keep a hummingbird feeder out all winter long. And just keep your eye on it. You might be surprised. And of course, if you see a hummingbird in wintertime at one of your feeders, just call somebody, call your local bird store, or call the Audubon Society, and they'll know who to get in touch with to come out and investigate the hummingbirds you have, because generally it's a rare occasion to see the hummingbird during the wintertime, and some people would like to know what it is and track it.
Right. Yeah. So keep a little food out for the hummers. Keep this types of food, lots of nut blends, suet blends. Those things are the best, but any type of seed, just keep that coming for them. And how is Coles doing as far as keeping its seed coming? Like during COVID, it's been some challenges to keep all the supply lines, but are things getting a little better? Or
I think they are. I think they are. We did pretty well during most of this last 2 years. We've certainly had our issues like everybody else. You just can't get the product. You can't get trucks to move it to here, or once you get it, you can't get it to the distributors. Everybody's had these kind of problems. So we also had the same problems. Things are slowly getting back to normal. And,
well, good.
Let's hope they stay that way.
And we want to be sure that that your birds have enough to eat. We do want to remind you that Valentine's is a great time to go out and get feeders and get the food and be able to give somebody the feeder and the seed at the same time, so that they can start this really fun hobby of being able to feed the birds, and they so need it during February, which this is going to be one of the coldest times of since the winter started. I think that's going to happen, and it's especially hard for them when it ices over, isn't it?
Yes.
When we get ice,
and that brings a very good point, because if the ice doesn't hurt them, but it takes away their water source. And you've got your little bird bath out there, or the stream close by that they go to may be iced over. Where are they going to find something to drink? It's difficult for them to get water also. So if you have a bird bath, look at changing the water out, knocking the ice out, adding fresh water once a day. You can also invest in a thing called a bird bath heater. They make several kinds.
Oh, yeah?
You can plug it in, drop it in there. It's kind of like a little heating pad for your bird bath. It's submersible, and it'll keep the water thawed out enough so they can always get the fresh water, and then keep the water fresh. You'll find, especially when it's not frozen, but still cold outside, the birds will bathe more. They know that they have to keep those feathers clean, fluffy, to protect their heat. So you'll see the birds have no problems taking bird baths when it's very cold outside. So keep fresh water for them. It's a good drinking source, plus they like to bathe in it in the wintertime.
And it's something that you don't really think about, because you don't really think, oh, well, if they're okay with the ice, but you don't really think like they don't have water there to drink or to clean themselves. And I remember you saying that, that it almost seems ironic, because for us, we're like, I don't want to take a bath in the cold.
The last time I want to take a bath is the middle of winter.
They stay warmer when they do.
Absolutely.
Such a great point.
So it's February, so you're supposed to think about the birds.
Right.
It's a great time to keep these things in mind in the wintertime, and help them get through the winter so they'll be there for breeding season.
Exactly. You want to get them through so that you have lots of fun things to watch.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that you want to say or bring up? Any questions that you've had? We do have a little bit more time, and we don't have any questions here. So anything that people have asked you about that you think is important?
I get a question every now and then, like, what are those birds up there making all that noise? They'll see this time of year, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it'll happen again in the springtime. Sandhill Cranes. If you're lucky enough to be under one of their flyways, and there's several of them through the U.S., we're fortunate enough to be, they come over Atlanta twice a year, and you'll hear them honking up before you see them. And people just look, and then they forget about it. But it's a great thing. Once you get used to that gurgling sound that they make, you'll hear them. I'll run outside every time, like, oh, here they come. And you'll know for the next couple of weeks, you'll be seeing flocks of Sandhill Cranes coming. And look at this. There's one there. Huge birds. And very, very loud, and you'll hear them from a couple thousand feet up.
Oh, yeah.
As
It's
they
so
come over.
distinctive. Once you've heard it, you know that again. And isn't there a place where people go, like maybe in South Carolina or North Carolina, where they go?
There's several places
you
where
know,
they'll
watch
actually
for
land.
them to come in, right?
And there's several places down in Florida where you can see them almost year-round. And Sanibel Island, I believe, they're down there most of the year. They don't leave there, I don't believe. So there's places you can see them. I don't have any place around me that I'm aware of where they actually land. They fly over. That's good enough.
Yeah.
That's good enough. And there's a lot of other birds. That guy's coming and going, and it kind of reminds me that, there's a lot of other birds in migration. And a lot of our birds that we're used to seeing in the summertime, they're out of here.
Yeah.
They're down in Central and South America eating insects and all, and laying out in their hammock and sipping juleps, waiting for the weather to get better back up here. And they migrate down there, and they come back because they can't survive the winter up here as easily as some other birds because they can't eat things other than mostly insects. So when the insects go, they go. And we don't think about it, but this is where they live and raise their young.
Yeah.
So it's not like they just come up here and visit. This is really where they're coming from.
Yeah.
They come up here, they mate, they take care of their young, then they all go down south and come back to home, which is up here. And I lose that thought every now and then. It's, they live down. No, they live up here in that sense. They visit down there when it's too cold up here.
Just like the snowbirds.
Yeah.
They just go down to Florida.
And they come down here where it's warmer before they go back. Absolutely. So it's fun to watch which ones move and which ones don't.
Right.
A lot of the birds just stay here. Even some of the warblers, we think, they're all insect eaters. No, some of them can get by quite well in the cold weather here. And but it's fun to watch this change in the seasons as it shifts.
And you know what else that reminds me of how you talked about that bluebirds have literally changed from all they would eat was insects. They didn't come to feeders at all. And now they've kind of adapted to coming to the feeders and that kind of thing. So
that's been an amazing story.
Yeah.
The fact the bluebirds, resurgence of the bluebirds, are people trying to bring them back. They started doing bluebird boxes back in the 40s and 50s to try to help the population. And then we started trying to feed bluebirds, but what do they eat? They're berry and insect eaters mostly. And but they will eat some other things. They're here during the cold months, so they get by on little things. And lo and behold, we started noticing about 25 years ago, a little more, that they would eat certain seeds. Sunflower, they can't crack the shell.
they love sunflower meats.
So we started introducing sunflower meats, shelled sunflower, into our bird seed as a high-quality bird food. And we noticed something really strange. We started getting reports of bluebirds coming to the feeder. Well, wait a minute. No, bluebirds don't come to feeders. Yes, they do. It's amazing now in 20 or 30 years, we've seen this progress. So now really bluebirds are very common at feeders around where this has been going on, where this kind of food has been presented for them. I have no trouble with bluebirds all year coming to my bird feeders because they eat the sunflower meats. And they eat the suet kibbles and other things we put out for them. So they have a lot more food to go with now. And so put that kind of stuff out for them, your bluebirds will catch on pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it's amazing that 20 or 30 years is not a lot for something to adapt and
No.
change and evolve. So that's amazing that they've done it in that shorter period of time.
Yes, and there's some other things that birds have learned in a short period
Right.
of time. Blackbirds and starlings, typically you'd put suet out and they'd come after it. So if somebody got the right idea, would hang it upside down with solid top on it because they can't hang like other birds. And so they would come around on top, they can't get to the suet. Problem solved. 10 years later, forget it. Problem not solved because they now just flip under.
Really?
They have no problem going around and hanging upside down and eating the suet from these upside down suet feeders.
That's so
It didn't take
funny.
them long.
Yeah.
They learned, and evidently they put it out in a memo that we didn't get because all of them caught on.
Now all of them
All
know.
of them
Isn't that
know how to
amazing?
go underneath these feeders and eat.
Yeah, they may not have email and social media, but they keep up, don't they?
They've got their sources. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always changing, and that's the fun part of watching birds and enjoying birds.
Oh, there's so much fun
Yeah.
to it. And we want to remind you that Richard is here every first Wednesday of the month from 3 to 3:30. So ask your questions. We'll be back in March. And some fun things to talk about in March as we lead into the breeding season, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that gives us something to look forward to. So
Want to
just
try
to,
some?
not on camera, maybe later.
Okay.
No, we want to thank you for joining us today, and be sure to get out there and get those Valentine's gifts and have a
Oh,
happy
yes.
Groundhog Day.
I'm
Right?
stopping on the way home at the drugstore.
Yeah, that's a good idea,
Yeah.
Richard.
Before I forget it again.
You got a good one.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Hello, this is Richard Cole. I want to thank each of you for watching, and I want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to share it.